Welcome to the Wolverine podcast. This is the live version, obviously. We're going out to you tonight, and you can catch us recorded later, but we're hoping that you're going to jump in right now and join us live. Send us some questions, things that are on your mind. And I know there's a lot on your mind after week one of Michigan's football season. I'm John Borton. This is Tom Crawford with me, as he often is. You know Tom very well if you're a longtime follower of the podcast. He is a longtime sports talk radio personality out of East Lansing, Michigan, regular panelist on the weekly TV show Press Pass with Jack Ebling, seen Sunday nights on Fox 47 in Lansing, founder and principal of the Crawford Podcasting Network, focusing on sports leadership and motivational content. Tom's a proud U of M alum and a weekly podcast participant here on the Wolverine podcast. You can find him on Twitter at BlueBellyTom. You can find him here right now, live. Mr. Crawford, welcome back to the podcast.
That's great to be back. A good week number one. I thought Michigan played well. I know we're going to break it down in a variety of different aspects, but I think Michigan fans walked out of that stadium happy and sweating, because from what I hear from the people I knew were sitting in the stands, we were up in the air-conditioned press box. It was pretty toasty down there in the corner of the stadium in Maine, in that stadium.
Yes, and the weather wasn't the only thing that was hot. We'll get to that. But as my friend Doug Karsh, who is now the voice of Michigan football from on high, Michigan Radio Network, says it's tough to get mad at a team for doing what it's supposed to do to whom it's supposed to do it to. So I can't argue with that. But honestly, coming out of that game, what's the talk on all lips? You know, there are other items going on. There's a defensive performance that we want to talk about for sure. But let's face it, everybody's talking about Michigan quarterbacks because of the unique situation we have here so far this year. Jim Harbaugh announces Cade McNamara starts week one. J.J. McCarthy starts week two. Then you get a little bit of an uneven performance out of Cade McNamara in game one, and people start to creep to the edge of their seats. This humble reporter got hammered by some on our own website because I had the temerity to say, you know, this thing's not over. Anybody can have a bad game or even, I mean, what Jim Harbaugh called a good game, but we could see the fact that it was an uneven performance, and certainly not what you're going to want to have against the bigger opponents. And in this game, and so that was taken as somehow being anti J.J. McCarthy. I would think that if anything, you, Tom Crawford, would know that is not the case. But I want your thoughts coming out of this one about these QBs.
Well, I mean, John, I know you very well and have for a long time. I know you're not dug in on this, you know, that you want Cade versus JJ. You're just open. You've been very open-minded to it, and you're reacting to the situation, and I get that. But the thing about what, this is kind of, everybody says, oh, we're just doing a rinse and repeat on this J.J. McCarthy, Cade McNamara. Well, because we have to, because there's continual moving parts. I mean, when you look what happened on Saturday, I mean, Cade, he got a $136 through the air, half of it on Roman Wilson on, a barely vertical pass in the flat that Roman Wilson did most of the heavy lifting on that play. Let's be obvious. So that's half of your 136. And then he had a pair interception. So close to an interception overruled. I mean, he didn't play well. There's just no question. And that's fine. I mean, that happens. I get it. And there's a lot of pressure on him. I understand that. But what bothered me more than his performance, John, was the post-game press conference. I'm big on body language and the tone and the folding of the arms, and his statement when he was barraged by a lot of questions about it, about the situation and JJ starting next week, and he just went on saying, "I thought it was mine." I mean, I thought it was, it's difficult to understand and all this stuff, and I just could tell that he was pissed off, and he didn't even mention JJ. He didn't mention JJ in the spring game, even though I know he's hurt and everything, but I didn't like the attitude. I mean, from an outlier looking in, or media, it wasn't a good look for him. It really wasn't. And for being a team captain, I would expect better optical leadership in a post-game press conference. And I don't understand why he was there. I mean, to be honest with you, he wasn't. They had so many other candidates, from the sports information department. I maybe ask Dave Abloff about this. Who picks these guys, or why is Cade there? He didn't have a stellar performance. Typically, it's based on who performs the best, and he certainly wasn't in that category, John.
I get that on one level. If I was to play devil's advocate there, I would say if he wasn't there, your starting quarterback, your team captain, then you're going to get people saying, "Well, why was Michigan hiding Cade McNamara after maybe not his best performance?" They're protecting him and all that kind of thing. I think that's a no-win situation, but I understand perfectly what you're saying about body language, about message communication. I think that maybe, just maybe, Cade McNamara might have gotten another message delivered behind closed doors that talks about expectations in those situations out of a captain and out of a starting quarterback. So we will see going forward, but I think that that's fair to look at it. On the one hand, the guy has to be frustrated, and he has to be a little bit, like you said, he's ticked off that there is still so much of this talk going on, and at the same time, he's got to understand he is in a competition. He is, regardless of what he has accomplished in the past, and we all know what those things are last year. You can't, you cannot get out of the fact that it is a rented position, as you mentioned, rented
on a weekly basis. On a weekly basis, it's rented.
Game to game. I think there's a certain there's two ways to approach this. I think that Cade McNamara deserves incredible respect and admiration from the Michigan fan base and everyone around Michigan football because of what he accomplished for this team last year. Incredible breakthrough year. At the same time, you cannot have, and he said it himself down in Indianapolis, he said, there can't be any sense of accomplishment or entitlement, any sense of this is mine and I own it, because it is an ongoing competition. Well, now the heat is turned up. Now the bright lights are on, and you have to live up to those words and carry it in a post-game situation.
Yeah, I agree. And I know I can visualize the arguments in the stands from section 1 to 44. People, the Cade people, the JJ people, when JJ came in there and made some plays, that design play, they scored that touchdown. He looked brilliant. I mean, his 4.5 speed, linebacker speed, faster than linebacker speed, showed the difference. And, I'm going to be honest with you. When I noticed his presence was the play before, when CJ Stokes ripped off 18 yards. And so he's doing the RPO. He's in the mesh, you know what I mean? And one guy on defense is all of a sudden not involved because he's got to focus on JJ McCarthy. You don't have to do that, or you feel like you don't have to do that with Cade McNamara. Okay, JJ McCarthy poses a huge threat to the defense, and that's the difference. The more than the touchdown run, as far as JJ McCarthy's presence, was the CJ Stokes run. That's what he can. That's the threat he can pose to take this offense to the next level. I understand that Cade He's done incredible. I get that. But if you want to go to the next level, which I think they do, we saw how good Georgia is. They're going to have to get more electricity. And by the way, Jim Harbaugh called JJ McCarthy electric, so he sees it. That's the solution, in my opinion.
You talk about electricity. I said after that game, there was clearly more juice in the Michigan lineup when J.J. McCarthy was on the
Yes.
field for the snaps that he had. He went 4 for 4, as you can see on your screen there, for the 30 yards, ran for the touchdown. He brings that extra element. We know that Cade McNamara brings a great deal of and has leadership and the ability to get you into the right play, to read defenses. If we are at the point where JJ McCarthy can match him in those things and consistently outdo him in the other physical aspects, then you're getting to the point where, okay, it could be time for number 9. At the same time, as again, I was doing a post game with one Doug Karsh, and he made the point that why do you have to make an absolute one way decision at this point? Why cannot the quarterbacks continue to battle? Because hey, if JJ McCarthy throws for 300 yards against Hawaii, and again, there's the competition thing, but looks fantastic in every single way. And Jim Harbaugh, after that game, says J.J. McCarthy is our starting quarterback next week.
No,
and then heaven, but heaven forbid, J.J. McCarthy takes off on one of those runs and gets a little bit nicked up. If you're at the point where you lose Cade McNamara mentally at any point, then I think you've got an issue, because quarterbacks, again, they're a snap away. If Cade McNamara gets nicked up, man, it's a fabulous thing. It's a huge advantage for Michigan to have a JJ McCarthy to bring in there. If JJ McCarthy is your starting quarterback, boy, what an amazing security blanket to be able to bring Cade McNamara in, or if either of these quarterbacks even has a couple of down series and you're looking for a boost, to be able to have guys of that magnitude to be able to come in. I just think it's a no-brainer that you don't put one of them in the position at this point where they feel like it's over. I'm sitting.
I agree. I agree with you and Karsh about this. And once again, Hawaii. I mean, Western Kentucky scored 49. Vandy scored 63. Okay, 112 points. I mean, what's it going to prove? You really that's not a sample size worth even evaluating. Okay, he's almost throwing against air. This is like 7-on-7. This is like going against the twos at Michigan, if worse. Okay, so that's not even an issue. Okay, so I agree with you. You got to go deeper. You got to go to UConn. You know what? You got to go to Iowa. You know what? Iowa beat South Dakota State 7-3 without scoring a touchdown. I mean, they're not a that very good football team. How do you really evaluate Iowa? Okay, you really don't have an evaluation of a quality opponent. Let's be real, John, until October 15th. And so I agree with you. I would hold off on this evaluation for another month, to be quite honest with you, because you don't play legitimate competition until, I mean, maybe I'm jumping on Maryland. Maybe I'm not open-minded to them. And Mike Loxley, he's a good coach. Okay, so maybe we'll throw the Maryland nugget. But I'm just, it's not a daunting schedule to really get a true evaluation against your bunch of quarterback competition until you get into mid-October. I'd keep it wide open, just like you two guys seem to agree on, and just keep evaluating. What's wrong with that? It's a position of strength, not weakness. You got two good quarterbacks. That's
all right. Then exactly. And deal with this. We just got a question that came in from Wistro7. Good point about quarterback backup. Have also heard people ask how much running McCarthy should be doing when the game is in the bag. Your thoughts in that area?
Well, Yeah, well, that's a good that's a good point. I mean, the game's in the bag. The game was in the bag in the first quarter. You got to play the game. I mean, you just can't, you can't ball up and just, not do anything. I mean, you can get hurt in practice. I understand the question, and this is, legitimately, this is a backup quarterback. When you have your backup quarterback, you're supposed to get away with able to throw in the ball, right? Hey, your backup's in, right? But the backup is a first string caliber quarterback. So that's an interesting thing, but you got to play the games. My question that I mean, I just am baffled by it, and I'm not smart enough to figure this out. How do you really evaluate film? How do you really grade these kids when you're going against that Hawaii defense? I mean, do you just look at the precision? I mean, I'm not talking just a quarterback and how the patterns are run, the blocking schemes, if ever there are any misassignments. How do you really even evaluate it when you're playing such an inferior team? That's the question in my mind.
Yeah, and I will know. I will tell you how the some people evaluated it in the first game, and I don't think it's necessarily illegitimate. They had evaluated it by, okay, look at what Cade did against that defense. Look at what JJ did against that defense. There appeared to be a difference in, even though JJ only had 4 throws, and but there just seemed to be more of effectiveness moving the ball on a consistent basis and not settling for field goals. And so you do it. I would think you might do it that way. But I agree with you. The real tests are to come. And that quarterback debate is going to rage on. We're not going to settle it in this segment. So we've got other things to get to, and one of the things is a defense that all of a sudden, we have talked about how Michigan had to plug in for David Ojabo and Aiden Hutchison, and where's the pass rush going to come from, and what's going to happen here. Well, we certainly saw signs of a pass rush. Yabi Onoma comes in and absolutely steamrolls off the edge for a big sack early, and you get 7 sacks. You've got guys coming from you've got a freshman in there and Derek Moore looking pretty good. You've got other guys that are coming in and putting heat on. And again, all of this it goes right back to in part competition. I get that, but we saw signs of some people really that are weapons that maybe Michigan didn't necessarily count on, and I'd throw Braden McGregor in that group as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a mulligan on the competition. The competition didn't matter. I mean, optically, we saw, and Harbaugh mentioned this post game. A lot of I've never seen. Yeah, he made a great point. And this goes back to the '70s for me. Those early '70s defense where you saw winged helmets all around the ball every play, and they'd all run to the ball until the whistle blew. And there was always a lot of helmets. So, and Jim said that, yeah, there were a lot of helmets on every play. Let me give you a classic example of that. Derek Moore, you mentioned him. He was mentioned in the post game. When you look at the stat sheet, it zeroes all the way across, with the exception he had 1 quarterback pressure. But you know what? He was all over the place. So maybe he didn't end up on the stat line, but he was always hanging around the chicken coop. And that's what this Michigan defense is going to be. I think it's going to be a defense by committee. I thought Junior Colson was magnificent. I mean, and you've been a big fan of his. Michael Barrett, he had a good game. Mozzie is an absolute animal. The DJ Turner scoop and score, I think he had the scoop and score. That was a guy making a play. They didn't make these plays last year. Rod Moore had a pick. I mean, picks were very hard to come by last year. So a lot. RJ Moten played good. Makari Page. A lot of names. I mean, there was 84 kids that played in this game. A lot of them, most of them on defense, and they rotate a lot of guys on that defense. They play a lot of nickel. A lot of guys going in and out. I was really excited about the defense more than anything. I was caught up more in the impression of the defense, John, actually than that quarterback controversy.
Well, I agree, and I would have preferred to write about the defense afterwards more than I did, but there's such an overwhelming emphasis on that right now. But I agree with you. I just think that this defense is showing some exciting signs. They knew they were going to have to come up with edge rushers to come up with Anoma that late in the game,
Yeah.
and to have him potentially be such an impact player. Junior Colson, who led this team with 10 tackles and is going to be a stalwart on defense from all appearances, said this guy's going to do nothing but play more and more.
Yeah. And when you think about his position, it's like on of the early, and this guy's a veteran college football player. He's a 5-star. He could walk in and pick up pretty easily. Okay. He come from big time program, Alabama. But when you're an edge rusher or a third down edge rusher, whatever, just like on defense, just like a wide receiver on offense, it's more of an instinctive, just go out there and do athletic things kind of deal. And boy, we saw that. And I looked down, I turned to my left and looked at the media, and I saw a media guy look at the other guy, looking at the other guy. And saw a lot of that. Saw a lot of windshield wipers with a head. Like, wow, that's something Michigan's really going to need this year.
Yeah. You take a look at those numbers, and as what you said, for an edge rusher, it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Hey, see that guy with the football in his hands?
There you go, get him, boy.
Go smash him. Yeah. So you can show up. Hey, here I am. Here's my bag. I haven't had the time to drop it off at the dorm, but I can rush the quarterback.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
And I think also Braden McGregor whiffed on his. He had the quarterback dead to rights, and didn't secure it. But he is a guy that is worked his way back from injury, and I thought it was a really good sign to see him do what he did.
Touchdown! That was Orgy.
We hear some audio in here.
I'm getting a little bleed through of Alex Orgy scoring. Yes.
Yeah.
But
so maybe
back
that's a segue to talk about Alex Orgy. So what do you think about that guy?
Well, as long as we're talking about quarterbacks, it's good to have one run the ball in short yardage situations. But I really do. Braden McGregor, I know what he's gone through. These guys that go through injury. Ronnie Bell's the same way. And he had one of the big blocks to spring Roman Wilson on his touchdown. But when you see guys like that, McGregor in particular, since we were talking about the defense, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and Rayshon Benny, there's some other names, that I'm looking forward to coming on, getting more opportunities to showcase. Again, once again, against better competition. There's a lot of athletes on this defense. And I think when you talk to Michigan fans, even maybe that are not deep in the content like us or some other people, that was a quick takeaway that Michigan defense is for real. Yeah, there was concern we're losing these incredibly ends, and Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo, but this has some other moving parts. This defense, it's a little bit different, maybe even a little bit quicker, and maybe a little bit deeper than last year.
Yeah, and we'll keep an eye on it. I'll tell you one thing. Certainly, if you are Jesse Minter or Mike Elston making your debut as defensive coordinator and defensive line coach, respectively, that's a nice check mark in game one.
Oh yeah, there's no question about it. And we've been talking about that. There's been a lot of and the same thing on offense. There's we haven't even talked about the two coordinator thing. I'm just curious on how all of the dynamics of that works. Or if you want to even throw Mike Hart in there, the running game coordinator, how does all that work? But yeah, this defense, I think it is by committee. These you got two great defensive minds and highly experienced, highly efficient, and it's a Baltimore Raven influence. So with Jesse, don't you think, John? This is Mike McDonald 2.0. What do you want to call it? It's the same thing, and there's no transition. for the personnel, I think it's just to pick up where we left off.
They're going to tweak it, and they said so. But if you have the basics in place, and these guys already know what they did last year, what that base is, and that's what they're getting. Okay, sure, yeah, let's build on it. Let's tweak it. Let's do some things differently. But we're not learning all the everything new again. And as far as Mike Elston is concerned, here's a guy that when he came in, you had Notre Dame people up and down the line saying, "Wow,
Yeah,
we lost a lot and you
yeah,
gained a lot." And
yeah,
that's hard for Notre Dame people to say when it comes to Michigan. But there's no question he was highly valued over in South Bend. He's going to be a home run here. I predict. This is a guy that not only he doesn't want to just get the pressure from the ends off the edges. He wants a real push up the middle, and I think he's gaining guys through this process that and developing other people who are going to put some heat on quarterbacks. There's no question.
yeah. There's a couple other kids I wanted to that it just came to mind that and I would like to get your opinion on it as well. Mike Sainristil, who is, I think he's wearing number 0 right now, if I'm not mistaken, just like Darius Clemens does on offense. Does that tell you right there he's not going to be playing any offense because you got the same number as a fellow receiver? So I think so. He's digging in on that defense, and he was all over the place as Jim was talking about. And the other kid, I was curious what you thought was. I watched a little bit of him because I like to bringing out the new vehicles. Will Johnson, he had quite a few reps in there. Saw a couple mistakes here and there. But he's going to be a dynamic player. There's no question about it. What do you think of Will?
Well, I think exactly what you said. You see the talent, and you see him just oozing confidence
Yes.
and swagger and ability, and he's got the physical makeup. But there are those mistakes, and again, we've done the schedule thing before. I that's one upside to me
That
of
you're right.
playing these opponents and getting those mistakes out now and learning from them. For these, you had 15 guys in this game catch a pass. You had,
Yeah. Yeah.
there are a lot of things like that. But Will Johnson, no question, he is going to be a star player, and you've got guys like Mike Sainer still, who, hey, where's the need? Is it more at receiver? Obviously not right now. That doesn't mean at all that Mike Sainer still can't be a really good wide receiver.
Oh, you can flip him back. I'm just saying. It
Oh
just
yeah,
yeah. It looked
he's
like he's dug in. He's dug in.
he's where he needs to be. So
Yeah.
absolutely. Moving on in this particular game, certainly we found a little bit out about Michigan's offensive line depth early because you had to, in precautionary measures and keeping some people out, and then you get a backup nicked up a little bit and has to go out, and Giovanni El Haddai comes in. I thought there were learning moments in that game for the
Yeah.
offensive line
Yeah.
because there were some times when all of a sudden it was like, uh-oh, this is not quite up to speed. As it's not instant that you transition from 2021 to 2022 with no glitches.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind, I mean, it's a tough act to follow. I mean, it was pretty much understood at the end of 2021 that Michigan's offensive line was the best offensive line in the nation. And that's high cotton comment. I'm telling you that right now. I think Ryan Hayes is he going to be back next week? Did Jim mention that potentially, or he doesn't
They
really need to be? I mean, it's like,
Yeah, no, it was cast as precautionary, and
yeah,
I think it has everything to do with, okay, how is he? Is he really totally healed up, ready to go? Because you'd like to start to get the continuity uh, with Ryan Hayes in there, working with the guys he'll be working with, because your left guard at first, you had one guy, and then you had moving over and shifting around, you've already got the transfer center, Oluwatimi, who looks
Yeah.
fabulous in a Michigan uniform. But
He looks
again,
good out there.
bright lights are going on. These guys, it's continuity, and
Mhm.
I think it's very important for them to gain that in these early games. Again, regardless of the opponent.
When you go 10 deep on your offensive line of getting quality minutes, that says a lot. But you're right, John. I mean, an offensive line has to work as a unit, and it's hard to plug and play and get continuity. So if we're gonna have these little nickups here and there, and Trevor Keegan got some, got some good praise. Just and the thing of it is, you gotta with Jim Harbaugh, and I love his positivity. I mean, he throws a lot of names out there. Saw some good things, So, but you don't know how good those things are. I mean, and he probably doesn't know. He didn't have to look at the film. Although one thing about Jim Harbaugh, I will say this: um, he has an amazing mind in terms of grasping certain plays, what people have done from the sidelines of a game that happened 20 minutes ago. It's have you been impressed by? I certainly have. It's like I say to myself, how did he know that? I mean, maybe he's hearing noise in the phone. Maybe he's hearing it in the phones. I don't know, but I mean, he seems to have an idea of what all 22 positions are doing. And it's another one good thing he talked about how clean the communication was on the phones. These are things that first game hiccups that can happen, but he talked about that. And it sounded like overall offensive line and in all 22 positions, pretty good first outing for Michigan.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we will continue to keep an eye on that, the development. It's so early, and we're balancing a number of things. Every time we praise something, we say, "Well, yeah, but what about the competition?" Every time
Yeah.
we knock something, it's almost enhanced by the fact that, wow, and this was against Colorado State, which
Yeah.
I mean isn't very good. It'll be the same thing on Saturday night against Hawaii.
Well, see, but we
So
know Hawaii's not that good. We don't really know how good Colorado State is. Maybe they'll go out and blow out Middleton. Maybe they'll go out and get on a run and be competitive in the Mountain West. We don't know. Maybe they're not so bad. And then the Iowa thing, John, and I didn't mean to jump on Iowa. They're going to get better. They always muck it up in game one, and then they get better. And their defense, their punting game is fabulous. So Michigan's going to have to move the ball. That will be I want to requalify that. That will be a test for Michigan quarterbacks against the Iowa defense. It's Iowa's offense that's pathetic.
exactly. Iowa is in a real struggle offensively, and quarterback's taking a lot of heat there. It's obviously better to have two potential starting quarterbacks than wondering if you have one.
Exactly.
Um,
That's a perfect example. What
you
Iowa.
know,
I'd like to be
that's
Iowa.
exactly. Um, so as we make these evaluations, how does Tom Crawford balance between, well, yes, this deserves praise, this gets a nod, this gets a helmet sticker this week, this gets a star in the class, but we don't really know how good the competition is. So how do you walk that line, and how do you make those determinations?
So you talking about on both sides of the line, all 22 positions, or are we
Oh
talking
yeah,
about
yeah. No, I'm talking about anybody. How
yeah,
how do you
yeah.
temper the competition? How do the temper the praise with the competition that is out there?
That's the question of the week. I mean, and I think you can. I mean, I've always wondered, how come a team doesn't play their best game even against the worst team? I mean, is that possible to do that? Because you have to qualify everything. I think there's a lot. I think the offensive line, the Christmas of the blocking. I mean, I'm gonna probably in this game. Look at all the unfun stuff. maybe what's been going on the interior line on both O line and D line, and not watch the ball like a normal, like in going fan and looking at the ball and seeing how the play's going to be productive in a yardage gaining situation. I'm just going to look at the Doug Skeen stuff, and how Chris the blocking, how much they dominate. Penalties and crispness of that, holding on to the football. I'll tell you what, the best thing you can evaluate against any level of D1 FBS level competition is the crispness of tackling. I think that's huge. I saw some teams on Thursday and Friday nights, the open field tackling. I'll give you an example. Central Michigan was horrible defensively in the first half against Oklahoma State. And then they came back. They gave up 51 points, and it was because the open field tackling in the secondary was horrible. And that's an example, and that's the first game sample. And I think if I'm going to look for the tackling. I mean, that's another thing to evaluate. You can have a good game, so it's little stuff like that, the down and dirties that maybe you wouldn't look at in a normal game, is what I'm going to look at.
Let me give you one more sign that you can put legitimate praise on an aspect of the game in the down and dirties as you sum them up. When your new sideline reporter for Michigan radio is one of the toughest blocking wide receivers in the history of Michigan football, Jason Avant, and he gets very pumped about the blocking on Roman Wilson's touchdown run by the receivers. That is a clear sign that you're doing something right. And
another great example, John. Great. And Jason Avant, John Colazar was another one going back a few years, where wide blockers, whatever. And that's how you spring big running plays. It's from the wideouts. I mean, they either decide that it's going to be a big play or not. I mean, we saw that in the Iowa game. Some downfield block in the Big Ten championship. You had the quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, down there escorting him down there. That's what you do to turn into big plays. And that's another thing I'm going to be looking at as well, is downfield blocking. And it's Michigan's best football teams in the past, over the several decades that I've followed it, had great wideouts in terms of blocking ability that would spring big plays.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we were talking about competition. We've got a question in from David Mays. Is Michigan going to continue playing weak teams at the start? I'd like to see them play someone tougher than Hawaii this week. Well, you came to the right place, David Mays, because not only can we tell you that the next year's non-conference schedule is similarly not at the level of playing Florida State, Oklahoma, and Notre Dame, but you're also getting your answer from someone who feels exactly like you do about this schedule. So I will answer the part about continuing to play weaker teams. I think you're going to see that again next year, although I throw in there that I think it's an aberration. But Tom Crawford, go ahead and take it from there.
throwing me a slab of meat here, huh, Sean?
Yes, I
am. For David, I mean, this was brought up this past week that the first time in 78 years, Michigan in this 2022 season is not playing a Power 5 / or Notre Dame on their non-conference schedule. Okay, first time in 78 years. That's a long, long time. And the problem, and that, if it was a 1-year aberration, that would be all right with me. But next year, who do we have? We have UNLV, we have Bowling Green, we have East Carolina. Okay, now East Carolina should have beat North Carolina State. So that's a pretty good group of 5 teams. So I'm not saying they're not a group, they're not a Power 5, but they're right on that edge. They're a pretty good team. But my point is this: you're going back-to-back years with no Power 5 competition. You don't have to have great teams. Just have a Power 5, like Iowa's hosting Iowa State. I mean, Iowa State, not a bad team. That's a rival game, and I get all that. But when you look at the Big Ten right now, at least I probably should look at it in front of me right now, but I don't have it. But I think everybody has at least one Power 5 team, with the exception of Michigan, who has all Group of 5 teams. That's what has irked me. And from my understanding, Michigan had a home and home with UCLA that they voided. And maybe I'll throw that nugget to you, John. Research that. Maybe you already have that intel to get out of that, and then that opened the door for what we're playing here. Is that correct?
I do not know, but I will be speaking with one Ward Manuel later in the week, and that'll be something that I toss at him.
Okay, I want to. Okay, John. Okay, so I'm gonna have you at. Can you ask this question, since you're the senior guy at Wolverine, you have all the experience. Ask him about what is the decision making process, because when Jim Harbaugh said go, when I was down in Indy, he told me to go ask Ward Manuel. So you're saying Ward Manuel is decision maker when contractually Jim Harbaugh, the head coach of the University of Michigan, is supposed to have part of his job description is to have input on the schedule. So who decides? That's a legitimate question.
That very question may well come up, and I will keep Tom Crawford in mind as I enter into any and all discussions.
All right, man. I'll be a fly on the wall, cheering you on.
Beautiful. Hey, we're deep in the fourth quarter. Let's close it out with this. Hawaii this week, J.J. McCarthy behind center. What's going to happen, and what do you expect out of the sophomore at quarterback?
Well, I think he'll be terrific. I think the 46-point spread, I'd be all over that if I was a betting man. I'm not. But I think Michigan's going to win like a 63-7 or something like that kind of game, and jump on them quick, and like I said, play a lot of kids. I mean, Jim wants to play 120. I didn't know they had 120 kids in the program yet. I thought they had 110. But a lot of kids are going to play, which is great for morale. And you can still play 4 games and maintain a redshirt year for all those freshmen. So this is going to be a good day for a lot of parents who will get to see their kid with a winged helmet out there on the surface of Michigan Stadium. So I'll go like 63-7 kind of game.
Yeah. Okay. Well, not only is it good for parents and families and pride, and hey, there's my kid out there, but when those kids are out there, and Jerry Hanlon has said this for years, the offensive line icon, when those kids get in the game, even if they're on demonstration team during the week, they work harder. They practice harder. Yeah. They get after it because they are a part of this thing, and they get it. And that is another benefit. I see. I hear you on the downsides of weaker schedules. I think there are some upsides. I think that's another one. You certainly want J.J. McCarthy to show more of what he did in that first game. I don't see any reason it won't happen. But I do have a question about, okay, where does a Cade McNamara fit as a reliever for J.J. McCarthy? J.J. McCarthy comes in to give him a little change of pace and that running quarterback option, that kind of thing. How do you see a Cade McNamara fitting into this game? Is it just fairly random?
I thought, that's a great question / point. I think you got a little rhetorical thing in there too, and I agree with you. I mean, it's like, why wouldn't you just start Cade and say, okay, Alex Orji, you're the backup. JJ's off this week, and you flip it the following week. I mean, I didn't know that this other element is in, but if I get that he's the backup, he's the second string. I would have JJ throw the ball and see what he has. See what he has as an arm, okay? Yeah. And you can do that early and not get accused of running it up. It's not running up. And with his first half, you can just keep throwing it, in my mind, and not be criticized for it for unsportsmanlike behavior, whatever. But then, with Cade, you're right. What does he do? He can't throw it because he's going to look like they're running up the score. I would have him throw, though, because he's a backup. A backup gets to throw, so he's a backup that day. So I hope he gets to throw and have a shot to get some of that rhythm back and maybe do some running with him. I don't know, but it's gonna be an awkward situation. It's gonna be an awkward 2 weeks.
Yeah, no doubt about it, and I agree with you. You got to let him throw the football, and you tell Hawaii, look, you've got an absolutely beautiful state. We love it. We love to go there. It's fantastic. You got to get better at football. And if you're not, don't complain about how badly you get beaten when you come into the number 4 team in the nation, according to the Associated Press. So that was a nice little jump for the Wolverines. Hey, we're going to be talking about that and more down the road. Thanks for joining us tonight. It's been fun. It always is with Tom Crawford. And we thank you for sending in a couple of questions tonight. That was great. We'll do more of that as we go along. We'll have we're planning on some guests coming down the road. That's going to be very exciting. But for now, we're going to leave it at that. Tom Crawford, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure, John. Always.